John Fredericks, America's Godzilla of Truth. He's popular and proficient in picking politics with prophetic precision. And now J. Fred's picking sports. Are y'all ready for this? All across the airwaves and streams of the John Fredericks Media Network, John, Jack, and Nate, three guys that are pretty wise when it comes to picking winners. Football, basketball, baseball, soccer, golf, UFC battles, you name it. When the game is on your mind and money's on the line, Godzilla Wins is your guide to picking winners. Before you make that play, hear what J. Fred has to say. Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network.
Oh yeah, for entertainment purposes only.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Godzilla Wins Saturday Picks Show. I'm your host, Jack Fredericks, alongside my father, the Godzilla of Truth, the Oracle of the Deplorables, John Fredericks. I'm sure he'll be with us shortly. And my panel for today, got a big panel, super excited about it. We got Nate Perry, senior editor for GodzillaWins.com, Mitch Rogers, contributor for GodzillaWins.com, and Pittsburgh sports aficionado. And Dan Angel should be joining us shortly as well, senior contributor for GodzillaWins.com. We are at our new time slot, so no more 8 to 10 Eastern time. We're here at a 9 to 11 Eastern time, so we're super excited about the new switch in time. Means we get to sleep in an extra hour, and you get to sleep in an extra hour as well, so you don't have to wake up so early to catch us, because we're here 9 to 11 now, 9 to 11 Eastern time. That's not just for today. That is for the foreseeable future. So ad infinitum, as they say, 9 to 11 Eastern time. We got a great show for you. Super excited. Always excited about the show. I was just thinking the other day, there's never been a time when I've come on here and said we don't have a great show for you. So although that would be a little counterproductive to my purposes, but I do believe that today is, just as always, a terrific show. So we're going to do MLB for like the first hour. That'll be that 9 to 10 hour, talking a lot of MLB, got a lot of topics to discuss. Of course, the Astros on everybody's mind in this podcast, this live radio show. We're going to talk Paul Skeens as well, a little bit New York Yankees, do some best bets, all sorts of stuff. Then at 10 o'clock Eastern time, I'm going to be joined by Jay Delsing, do some soccer, little Wimbledon, and then of course the John Deere Classic, where Jay thrives, that golf. So we'll do a whole bunch of interesting stuff here at the second hour. It's July though, so as far as sports goes, we are gearing up for the Olympics and for football. But sports in July can be a little bit can be kind of tough. But Wimbledon is going on right now, so that's exciting. We do a lot of MLB. Should be really a good show. Don't turn that dial, because you're going to want to tune in to the whole 2 hours. Now, Godzilla Wins and all of its subsidiaries are for entertainment purposes only. So if you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER, 1-800-426-2537 in Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Louisiana, Maryland, Michigan, Nebraska, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Call 800-327-5050. Visit gamblinghelpline-ma.org. In Massachusetts, call 877-G-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-3669. In New York, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. In Arizona, 1-800-522-4700. Kansas, New Hampshire, 887-889-7777. Visit ccpg.org. In Connecticut, 100 bets off in Iowa, or visit opgr.org. In Oregon, please remember to gamble responsibly. Okay, got my whole panel with me except for John, my father, who I'm sure will be here at some point. No sense in checking in on him. You never know where he is, but I'm sure he'll show up. So let's start then, not with baseball. We'll start with our weekly obsession. I'm actually going to go first, even though I'm kind of tired of hearing myself talk already. So that's exciting. But I do have one. So I'll start. This is the WNBA, which I didn't put this on the run sheet because I'm getting kind of tired of writing segments for the show that are just basically Caitlin Clark has changed the league. Like, I don't know how many times we can talk about the same topic over and over again. So I've been trying to brainstorm other ways to talk about the WNBA, but without just talking about either the Caitlin Clark Angel Reese rivalry or just the fact that Caitlin Clark has changed the shape of the game. But I do watch a lot of the WNBA. Shout out to WNBA League Pass, which I just picked up for like $35 for the year. Now, not exactly, you don't get every game. So if the game is like on another channel, like on TV. You don't
Like
get
every Caitlin Clark game.
yeah, right. You can't pay, yeah. So you can't. I mean, I don't know. I think that's probably true. Yeah. So or like yesterday, I was like, oh, I'll watch this game, and they were like, no, it's on Amazon Prime. I was like, well, I have Amazon Prime, that's fine, but not really sure why I have the League Pass. But if you want to watch like the Mystics, the Atlanta Dream, then League Pass is there for you. Now, my weekly obsession is really just this All-Star voting for the WNBA. Just sheer numbers wise, sort of interesting to talk about. The top 5 vote getters for the All-Star game for the WNBA last year. Asia Wilson with 95,000 votes, Breanna Stewart with 87,000 votes, 2 of the top players in the league this year and last year, of course. Brittany Griner, 72,000 votes, Aaliyah Boston, 72,000, and Jackie Young, 63,000. This year, top vote getters, just the votes. Caitlin Clark, top getter, 700,000 votes. Aaliyah Boston, second, 618,000 votes. Asia Wilson, third, 607,000 votes. Breanna Stewart, fourth with 424,000 votes, and Angel Reese fifth with 381,000 votes. So 2 rookies, both Clark and Reese, make up about 1 million votes, but we see about a 700% increase in voting in the All-Star game this year to last year, which I think for a couple of reasons. Of course, Caitlin Clark's effect is in full swing there. We see that how much more popular the sport is now, but also just the fact that this many people are voting for the All-Star game, which is like kind of, I don't know, like All-Star games are not exactly something that I think everybody is watching these days or that interested in. So the fact that we have such a large increase in votes, which tells me that not only is it successful, that people are actually planning to tune into the All-Star game, which is a weird format in the WNBA this year because of the Olympics. So when the Olympics is going on for the WNBA, the team that was selected for Team USA plays the other WNBA All-Stars. So for instance, if Asia Wilson is still selected as an All-Star, she plays on Team USA because she's an Olympian, whereas Caitlin Clark, who's not an Olympian, plays for Team WNBA. So that's how they split up the 2 teams. So it's like All-Stars versus WNBA, which they do just during the Olympics. Since the Olympics interrupts the season of the WNBA, they'll pause most of August for the Olympics, and then they'll resume back in September. Anyways, that's my weekly obsession. I've talked for 8 minutes straight, which is too much for me. So who else wants to jump in here? We got a couple minutes before we do some baseball with a weekly obsession. Go ahead, Dad.
I can do a weekly obsession or baseball. Which is it?
Weekly obsession. We're not doing baseball for another couple minutes.
Okay, I'll go. I'll pass.
Okay, he'll
Of course.
Thank you for putting me right back into the classroom there in July, where I ask a question, a student raises their hand, then they go, wait, what was the question? Oh, no, never mind. I don't want to answer that question. So I appreciate going right back to the classroom there with you. Would anyone else like to bring their weekly obsession?
Look, I'll go with the weekly obsession, right? Those of us that, and it's kind of baseball, but it's not a team. Those of us that follow baseball, right? The amount of mock, I get trade deadline nonsense that I see on a daily basis. And I know all of you guys are seeing this that have teams. I mean, it is like 15 a day coming from ESPN and the Athletic and all these sports, right? Associated Press, whatever covers what, New York Post, right, et cetera. All these trades, this team is talking to that team, and this guy's going to go, and who's a seller and who's a buyer, and they're going to get the Chicago pitcher and trade these 5 minor league guys, and it's going to gut their system. Somebody's going to unload this guy, and it's all clickbait. They have no information on any of this, and all it does is to get the people of the teams of the stars they're trading pissed off. That's all it does. So they click on it and read it. Like, I got 3 of them I clicked on, and I'm like, this is complete and utter nonsense. None of this is going to happen. Like, the Astros are not going to trade Bregman at the deadline when they're in the middle of a pennant race. I mean, all this stuff is so stupid. And this the problem, I tell you, with all media now is clickbait. And we don't have that on the show. That's why it's so popular. Everybody is after clickbait. That's how ads serve up. That's how they get paid. So you get this, and it's even getting into our business here. in athletics because the majority of it is absolute nonsense. It's a waste of time, but they have to do it in order to get clicks, and that's what's driving it. And so 99% of these trades are not going to happen. They have no information. No GM is going to leak out who they're going to trade. Nobody in the front office is going to do that. It's so stupid, it's beyond belief. That's my rant of the day. Stop it.
So the Astros don't have Christian Walker yet?
No.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, John,
New York Post.
that's been something that's been going on for like well over a decade. Like my first year in journalism, I had to try and chase down a story because I was in Trenton, New Jersey that summer, covering the Yankees AA team, and there was a report from one of these sites that there was a potential trade involving two pitchers in the Yankees system, and it got called off because one of the pitchers had labrum damage, and no such examination ever happened. Like, I actually had to ask the pitcher multiple times to confirm that he wasn't lying, and like he eventually he initially got pissed at me because he thought I was the one making up the rumor, and then he realized that no, I'm just trying to make sure I've got this right, and I'm not going to screw this up as a young in college reporter. But yeah, like that's been going on for years.
Yeah, Dan, I was about to say a spirited defense of journalistic standards from John Fredericks over there. Of a sudden,
John's not wrong that there is a lot of clickbait and that there are some unethical people in this, but yeah, there are some people who do things right as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you see it, just sports in general, you see it all the time. Like, there's just the amount of clickbait that's out there, just outside of the trade deadline is always kind of overwhelming in many different ways. So yeah, we don't really do that here, but it is a way to get you to click. So Dad, I'm sorry that the Athletic keeps emailing you saying the Astros might trade insert
all of your
Dad's
favorite
players, and then he clicks on it, and then he gets mad that it's just clickbait. So I'm sorry that.
I think they do. I think they do. They got some algorithm, so they find out like the people that, if you go to the Athletic and you subscribe to it, you get to pick your teams that you want the information on, right? So that's what goes in your inbox. Obviously, I don't care what Tampa's doing. I care about what my Astros are doing. So now I'm convinced that they take those emails, or they take those emails, and then they just push out stuff that they know is going to piss the fans off, and they're immediately going to click it. So, and then you read it's like, this is like nonsense. So I think that's what the Athletic is doing. By the way, it's a great site, but they're losing money. It's just tough to make money in that business. The New York Times saved them in the short term, but they're just bleeding cash like crazy. Eventually, that thing will implode.
Well, yeah, and we got time for one more weekly session, but I'll just talk about this for a minute because I'm always thinking about this as someone who runs a sports website. I guess is just the how difficult it has become in the media, in journalism, to make any money is astounding. Sports Illustrated laid off a ton of employees, especially like sports is one thing where I used to think, okay, well, it's a little impervious to the ebbs and flows of journalism. And some stuff, because everybody likes sports and everybody engages in sports, etc. But it is really difficult. They say, I read an article a very long time ago about the media, and what they say is pretty much every media company is a loss leader except for the New York Times, and that has to do with two things that have nothing to really do with journalism. Number one is the daily games, the crossword puzzle app with the Wordle and all that stuff. That makes the New York Times a ton of money because everybody plays Wordle when they purchase that. And then the two thing that is not a loss leader for the New York Times is the cooking app. So people go on for the recipes.
That's like a special subscription.
Yeah, it is. And you can subscribe to those daily games as well. And those are what lead the New York Times in their money making sort of on their spreadsheet, I guess, on their balance sheet. It's not the journalism or the recognition of 100 years of New York Times or whatever. And they're the only ones that make money. Wall Street, or the Wall Street Journal is a loss leader, and the Washington Post, at least from that article. I don't want to sit here on the radio and tell you that the Wall Street Journal is losing tons of money. I wouldn't know, but according to an article I read 3 or 4 months ago, that's still in my head, that I think about all the time. It's that the New York Times are the standard bearer here, and the two things that keep them afloat in ways that others struggle with is not podcasts and not journalism, not subscriptions for the news, but Wordle and cooking. So kind of interesting there, but tough industry to always be in, Dad. We got time for one more weekly obsession. Who'd like to go?
I mean, my weekly obsession really just affects my own sporting life. I have become a pretty locked in meteorologist at this point in my Texas living career after 1 month. And it's really affected my golf schedule. So as another named storm comes barreling towards the Texas coast, I have been learning a lot about hurricane forecasting from Tropical Storm Alberto a couple weeks ago. And now we got Hurricane Beryl that looks like it's going to make landfall right about on top of Corpus Christi, which is where I live now. So just, watching the news, waiting for hurricanes, learning about prepping, learning about how there's just no cans on the shelves when you go to HEB right now. No bottled water, no ice. It's like 4th of July weekend and hurricane preparation meeting together is just a pretty rough state of affairs for the stores around here. But it's been interesting.
Yeah, Beryl should pick up some strength in the Gulf before it hits the Houston area, a little bit south of that. So we're hoping that it doesn't affect you, Nate, or the region too much. But yeah, you gotta, as someone who's lived on the Gulf Coast and has lived in the South where flooding is a real issue down here in the Delta, make sure you have jugs of water and cans of food before the announcement of the hurricane. So once this is over and the shelves stock, go ahead and get a whole box full of stuff and just leave it there in case it happens again. Unless you're me, in which case, because I've done that before, and then I ended up eating everything that was in the box before the next flood issue. So that actually backfired for me. I was just eating pork and beans for breakfast.
Yeah,
that didn't work.
Because yesterday I was at the store and I was like, man, these people are crazy. They have so much water and so much canned goods, and I'm just like, ice cream sounds good. And then I went home.
yeah. Don't do that. Don't do that. I during my first master's, I studied flood narratives in the American South, and I did a lot of research on hurricanes and how that affects fiction in that area of the country. So definitely someone who has spent a lot of time thinking about how hurricanes affect that area, but we're praying for that area as Beryl comes quickly. Okay, let's move on to some baseball then. I'm reluctant to talk about the Astros, but we have to because they are a brand for Godzilla wins, and also best record in the major leagues since June, I think. I mean, they had a great record in June, and now they're 4-1 in July after winning kind of a sloppy, messy game last night, 13-12 against the Twins. They're in second place. They're 2 games out of first. So they are a big story in the news just as far as turning it around. DraftKings is still a believer. They have them at 14-1 to win the World Series, which is, for a team that's in second place with a mediocre record, is pretty high. So, Dad, we'll start with you because we know we have to. Then we'll go around the horn here and just talk about how the Astros were able to turn this around. I want to get to Dan after Dad because Dan's been the one telling Dad not to worry. It's early. They can turn it around, and he was right. So, Dad, we'll start with you, then we'll go to Dan.
Well, I guess my bedwetting is over, which went on for the month of April, May, and June, where basically I woke up June 7th. The Astros were 10 games under 500 and 10 games out of first place, battling the Angels for fourth place, and 8 games out of the wild card. I mean, the season was over basically until they went on this tear in the first week in June. What Seattle did last night, I went to bed. They were up 2-1, bottom of the 7th, I think. So assuming they won, they're 2 games out, second place. Rangers have faded. I don't know what's going on there. But all of a sudden you wake up, half the team is out with injuries. Tucker's out. Verlander's out. You still got McCullers out. Garcia out. Javier's out. Some pitcher they brought up from Double-A pitched 2 innings. He got hurt. He's out. Now I think Altuve hurt his hand. He's out for a couple of days, depending on what goes on. The team has been racked with injuries. The best thing they did, though, is they cut Abreu, who was hitting 050. I mean, it was horrible what happened. I mean, everybody loved him in the clubhouse, but when you got somebody hitting 075, popping up and striking out with guys on base, finally they got rid of him. They started winning. And so, look, I mean, I bet him to win the World Series at 10-1. They were as high as 25-1. Now they're back to 14-1 on DK. DraftKings, but right now it's an exciting team to watch. The team was set up to win a game when they're ahead in the 6th inning. That's Montero, Abreu, Presley, Hader. For 2.5 months, that did not work out. Didn't work out in April, didn't work out in May, and didn't really work out in the first week in June. Hader was 0 for 4. Presley's ERA was 9. Abreu wasn't doing that good. Montero was getting hit. Now it's all come together, and they pieced together some kind of a starting rotation. Hunter Brown, who was absolutely abysmal for 2 months, all of a sudden is like the pitcher of the month in June. He found a sinker, a cutter, and now he's unhittable. So he goes tonight. But now they're playing very exciting baseball. They're hitting, they're scoring runs, and now they have that closeout pen that we all thought they'd have. It's going to be fun down this stretch. It's a lot more fun being 2 games out than 10 games out. But I got to say this, Mitch. I went to the Pirates game last night with Joe. Who was home for a
Okay,
couple
hold
of
on.
days for the holiday.
Hold on, Dad. Let's save that story because
I got to get to
talk,
that though later.
Yeah, we're gonna talk Paul Skeens in about 10 minutes, so I'd rather
Okay.
just hold off on the Skeens talk because
You got it.
yeah, and that was an exciting game. I know they hit like a ton of home runs and ran out of fireworks, so we'll talk about that.
Unbelievable.
But before we do that, let's stay on the Astros here because we have a couple minutes before we move on to the Pirates. Dan, how can you contextualize this surge? I mean, is it more that this is now what the Astros are capable of doing, or is it kind of just the return back to the mean that we were at 1 standard deviation to the left when they were losing? Now we're at 1 standard deviation to the right because they're winning more than they should, and really this is just a 500 ball club.
I mean, I think it's a little of both. I mean, I don't think that the Astros are a 500 ball club. I think they're a little better than that. At the same time, I think part of this is because the schedule finally caught up to where Houston was, because the early part of the schedule, the Astros had a real bear, and lately it's been the exact opposite. I mean, you look at the teams that they've beaten in this surge over the past couple weeks: Detroit, the White Sox, Colorado, the Mets, Toronto. They did have a sweep of Baltimore in there. That was really impressive. But other than that, it's been mostly bad teams that the Astros have been beating up on. So I think that this is a pretty good team. John, I don't want to hear it from you because, as Jack pointed out, I was the one talking you off the ledge when the Astros were facing their toughest opponents. So I think I've earned some credibility on this topic.
I didn't say anything.
Yeah,
The most credibility on this
I
entire
see it. Yeah,
panel.
you can tell.
yeah.
And as far as the division goes, I think Houston will definitely be in the race the rest of the way, but it's really going to be tough to catch Seattle because of that schedule. Because the Mariners they still have a combined 24 games to go against Oakland, Los Angeles, and Texas, plus another series with the White Sox, 6 with Detroit, and they get another 2 with the Blue Jays. So Seattle's going to be facing a lot of bad teams the rest of the way. So
Yeah.
it's not going to be able to make up that ground. And as far as Texas goes, finish them off now, because if the Rangers get to the last month of the season and they're still alive, their schedule is so ridiculously easy that they have a chance. Like, looking at Texas's remaining games, a combined 29 are with the White Sox, the Blue Jays, the Angels, and the Athletics.
Yeah, and you're right. So you're right about Texas for sure. I think the idea that they're not still alive is not true. They are. And Dan, I mean, we talked about this early in the season when you spoke about how to bet baseball going into the season. You said, look, the schedule is one of the most important things early on in the season, and the Astros were playing a difficult schedule in May and has eased up in June, and July should be okay too. I mean, they get the Twins and the Miami Marlins, a couple games against Texas, which of course, but then they finish out the July with some, like, right around the trade deadline with 3 games against Dodgers and 3 games against the Pirates, which should be really interesting to watch. So, we'll see what happens, I think, with the Astros this month after the All-Star break.
They've also got an absolute beast in late August, because they end that month with road series at Baltimore and Philly back to back, and then they go up. Then they get 4 against John's Royals. So,
And when you have these epic comebacks, you have to have another team falter, right? So the Seattle Mariners, I mean, they've struck out 11 times in 8 straight games. I don't care if they get to a cake part of their schedule. If you get in that slump, the mental anguish, you start getting down, and
that's
they can
true.
maybe. And they 5 for 32 with the runners in scoring position, so they're just in a little bit. So
But
bad
Seattle's
timing, right?
But Seattle's been the worst hitting team in the majors all year.
Yeah,
I mean,
true, yeah.
this isn't a team that can hit the ball. They win with pitching and defense, which is basically how it's always been since they opened that ballpark. They build their team for their park.
Yeah, that's true. The other thing about the Astros and the AL West, just in general, when it comes to the American League, it's just a weak division this year. So while the Astros are 2 games out and Texas is 8 games out, I mean, they're 8 games under. The leader in the division is 49 and 41. That's the Mariners. The leader in the Central is Cleveland, 54 and 32. And then Baltimore is 56 and 32. If the Astros were in the East, and of course that's always unfair because the East is just a tough division. But if they were in the East, they'd be in 4th place. They'd be a little bit ahead of the Rays. They'd be 10 games out. So, again, this is I think what I think is nuts is the fact that DraftKings has them at 14-1. I mean, there's so many. That's just awful value for a team that really is, I wouldn't say playing exactly World Series level baseball.
It's a team that's been there before, and it's a team that has that pedigree of winning. So you really don't want to see the Astros in October. Like, this is a team that you need to finish off now before you get into that short series situation where Houston knows what it's doing and is kind of built for that situation. So over 162 games, Seattle might be the better team, but in a 7-game series, it's hard to go with the Mariners in that matchup.
Especially if the Astros can get a starting pitcher, which they should be looking for.
True.
Well, like the GM Dana Brown said, Garcia's now doing his second rehab in the minor league, so he's coming back. He's like, that's trading for a frontline starter in August. McCullers is coming back, they think, in the middle of August, so you're going to have 2 pitchers there. And so I don't think they're going to do anything. You got to remember, all this winning is done without who was their hottest hitter, which is Kyle Tucker, who's been out the entire winning streak. He's been hurt. He's not due back till after the All-Star break, maybe 3rd week in July. So this winning has been without those guys. And it's also Verlander's been out a month. He's apparently coming back sometime after the All-Star break. Something about his stiff neck or something he hurt. He's obviously aged. But, they got 3 frontline pitchers coming back between July and September. McCullers, Garcia, and Verlander on top of what they got now. And they got Tucker back now. Hopefully nobody else will get injured. I think Altuve hurt his hand last night. But I think that's why I think that's why DK has them only 14-1. And yes, on paper, it's not good value, but, been there, done that. I mean, the fact that I'm sitting here and they're 2 games out July the 6th, when on June the 6th, they were 10 games out, and the season was basically over. 10 games out and 9 games out of the wild card. I mean, you got to be kidding me. You're basically done. And now they're right in the hunt. So it's gonna be an exciting second half.
Lance McCullers is not the reason they're going to win.
He's not a frontline.
Like, I don't understand why you always do that. Lance McCullers has not been a factor for the Astros since 2017 when they were when they were banging on trash cans to try to get ahead of the pitches there. So let's just leave Lance McCullers alone, please.
He's coming back.
I'm sure he's a nice guy, but he's not a factor.
He's coming back.
Nate, just real quick, and then we'll get to Paul Skeens here. You were on assignment at Sugarland, right? At the Astros, the AA team. So
Corpus Christi,
Corpus Christi.
Yeah.
Okay, so not
Sugarland's AAA.
Right. The Hooks, the Corpus Christi Hooks. So what were you able to glean from the Astros' future there at Corpus Christi? How was that experience there?
Well, the experience wasn't. They weren't good. When I watched them, they just got smoked. So we mostly just enjoyed Whataburger. Phenomenal Whataburger at the field. It's basically a full service, slightly limited menu, but still excellent. Got some sunshine. There are tons of concession stands. Beautiful ballpark, right there on the bay, right underneath an uncompleted bridge. So, I mean, as far as people going to the stadium, wonderful experience. As far as what I learned about the team, I think I'm going to need to go a few more times. And
A couple
maybe
more
enjoy
times
Whataburger
to
a little less.
understand. Yeah. Well, look, there's nothing wrong with Whataburger. I mean, I'm a big concession guy anytime I go anywhere, really. But certainly at the ballpark. Although I'm more of a I'll buy a couple hot dogs and I'll just stick 2 in my pocket just for later. You never know. On the ride home.
For you guys down there, what's the big deal with this Whataburger? I've never had one. I think we were in Arizona, Jack, in Tucson or something. We go by one, and it's like, "Oh, we got to go to Whataburger. We got to go to Whataburger." I'm like, "What is that? Like McDonald's?" She said, "Oh no, that's the best."
Whoa.
What is the deal with Whataburger? Why is it so good?
Well, it's a Corpus Christi chain, but it was started here. The first one was here. So for people down here, it's just like that's their fast food. Everyone's got their regional fast food. Like in Carolina, they have Bojangles, and they have different ones other places.
What's the difference between Whataburger and McDonald's or Burger King? Like, what's the difference?
I think the burgers are bigger.
Yeah,
Smash.
Burgers are bigger. A few more options on the menu. Like Whataburger, I think, is probably like a higher, like somewhere in between McDonald's, Burger King, and Five Guys.
Yeah.
Dad,
McDonald's is like Soylent Green.
McDonald's is fine, Mitch. By the way.
Oh, I have the app. I like it. I have the app.
McDonald's is okay when it's made fresh, and it's actually pretty good in Hawaii because Hawaii has stricter standards.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like pretty much all fast food in Hawaii is actually really good.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Dad, I'll give you a little quick lesson in economics, then we'll move on. Consumerism is creating differences where there are none. There's no difference between any of these burgers. But there is a difference between Healthy Cell and any other product on the market here. So when you're talking about Healthy Cell, man, oh man, you can't get any better than Healthy Cell's REM sleep. Dad knows he's up early. And, we need it. Even though we switch from 9 to 11, we still need the REM sleep there, get us into that third deep sleep, even though we get another hour of sleep on Saturday. I use REM sleep all the time to get that deep sleep. It's tough to get more than 6 hours. It's tough to fall asleep immediately at night when you're busy, when you've had a long day. Sometimes your body's just up, and REM sleep works. You take that stuff and you're out and you get a deep sleep and you feel refreshed and ready to go the next day, which is why if you're listening, you can go to healthycell.com. That's healthycell.com. You put in the promo code Godzilla at any of their products, not just REM sleep. That's the one we love to talk about because it's so incredible. But all their products are incredible. I use a bunch of them. And you put in that promo code Godzilla, it's going to get you 20% off, which is a great promo for their products. So you go to healthycell.com, do a little REM sleep. And you won't be disappointed there. Promo code Godzilla, 20% off on your REM sleep. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Paul Skeens and the Pittsburgh Pirates, not football. We'll start with Dad because he was at the game last night.
For them last year.
Yeah. We'll start with Dad because you were at the game last night, so you saw him in person. Then we'll go to Mitch, of course, Pittsburgh aficionado. I must be ready for football season here. Maybe I'm ready for football season. As a Falcons fan, I miss Arthur Smith so much. I just have the Steelers on my mind.
I saw the
all
tweet.
The time.
I saw the
that doesn't even begin to make sense.
I saw your clickbait tweet.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
That's like Mitch pining for Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, Mitch
put an Eagle jersey on.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dad. Tell us what you saw last night from Paul Skeens and the Pirates, who have been a fun team to watch this year.
By the way, Mitch, before I forget, great column on the Steelers. That was the first line. When you read a column, like they used to teach me back in the day, it's the first line and the last line that makes everybody read the middle. Your first line was a 10. It's like 12 months ago today, here's where we were. It's just an outstanding writing. Very talented you are. I just wanted to say that. So first, the other thing I want to say is, you see, I got Jack's not here, but so I'll wait in a minute because I got my Father's Day gift on, which I got when I got home from Cape Cod. But listen, I went to this game yesterday with Joe, and we got pretty good seats because Joe really wanted to see Skeens. I'm 66. I've been following baseball since I'm 8. How long is that? 58 years. I never saw anything like I saw last night. This guy, I mean, he is going to go down in history as the best. Forget Sandy Koufax, Bob Gibson. This guy's going to be up there right now with. I've never seen stuff like this. Like, we're sitting there. He's got a 99-mile-an-hour heater. He's got a slider with a wicked break in it. In the sixth inning, he's throwing 99, striking guys out. But he's got an assortment of pitches. He's got a changeup, which is not one of his better pitches, but it's, it throws you off. He threw 2 curveballs last night. 2. He pitched, I think, through the 6th inning. I think. Maybe the 7th. He threw 2 curveballs the whole night. Both of them landed for strikes 0-1. The guy is just, and then a couple of, he set you up with that slider down and in. He'd get 2 strikes on you, and then he'd come back with a high cheese at 98, 99. And in the 6th inning, he doused somebody 1-2 after 2 sliders in the dirt. It was a 2-2 pitch. He got ahead 0-2. He threw 2 sliders in the dirt, 2-2 pitch, 6th inning, high cheese, 99. I mean, the guy was helpless. I've never seen a guy like this. He is, I tell you what, whatever the Pirates have to do, sign this guy for a decade. I mean, he is something special. There's just something about him. Like, he's not out there pounding his mid. He's not walking around the mound. He gets out there with his briefcase and his computer and sets up to go to work. Walks off the mound. This guy is something special, man. I was like, my jaw dropped. Joe and I were like, oh my God, look at this stuff. But then, quick anecdote, we're in the 3rd inning, right? I think the Mets were ahead 2-0. We're in the 3rd inning, and everybody on the team's hitting like 180. It's like 170, 180, 160. Like, the leading hitter, your second baseman, is like 268, right? He's hitting cleanup. We're like, everybody's hitting $190 on this team. And so were the Pirates fans. Did this team ever score any runs? Did they ever hit? Then they pop 14 runs, 2 grand slams, 7 homers after I said that in the 3rd inning. So I take all that back. But that was an exciting game. The 2 grand slams and 14 runs, 7 homers.
They ran out of fireworks last night.
Yeah, they ran. Yeah. And he's pretty So, like we've said, I live just outside of DC, or 30 miles south of DC. And we had a bunch of people over last night, and the Pirates game was must-watch TV in our area. And what he reminds us of here is when Strasburg debuted into the league, 13 years ago. And that's the similarities I see with them. But the problem is what you just brought up. The team surrounding him. His previous 2 starts, he only allowed 1 earned run in each start. The Pirates lost both games, and so there's a sense that the Pirates ownership is going to do the same thing that they've always done and just waste this team away. And they better not get into the world of the Nationals and Strasburg like, oh, we have a plan in 4 years. The time is now. I mean, the Pirates need to add something now with the way the wild card is set up. It give us some excitement. PNC Park, when it's full and electrified, is just good for Major League Baseball as well. And the Pirates have one of those teams, and we talked about the Astros when they get into the series. They have one of those teams that Mitch Keller continues his dominance. I know he got roughed up last outing. Jared Jones, he's on the DL, but he's one of the most exciting pitchers. They have 3 starting pitchers that are going to be tough to take out if they can get into a series. So the time is now. So I agree. Paul Skeens, it's so electrifying, and he wants to do that strikeout to end. I mean, his gamesmanship and the way he looks at the crowd, and he's Pittsburgh already. I mean, he's such a superstar, global superstar, especially with Livy Dunn and all that stuff. But he's slowly just becoming a Pittsburgher in like a matter of 3 weeks. And so I just want the ownership to do the right thing and not, farm him off in 5 years. We see him with the Yankees or the Dodgers. So we just need to do the same thing the Astros, and we need a first baseman. Well, maybe not. Rowdy Tellez is doing okay, but we need some hitters, and Brian Reynolds can't do it all on his own. And it's cool. McCutchen is pretty hot right now, but you can't rely on a upper 30s guy to carry your team. So I hope that they just compliment Paul Skeens and put a team around.
Well, you've also got a closer. I mean, don't forget you guys have a legit closer.
Yeah. I mean, they have plenty of pitching, and you hope that a team like the Pirates can understand the moment that they're in with someone like Skeens and possibly try to build around him. There are hitters who probably in the offseason are going to want to play with him. He's just so interesting to watch. He's, from a statistics standpoint, he's like so much fun because his stats are just incredible. I don't know about the Sandy Koufax analogy there. But,
I agree. It's perfect.
But Dad's always known for a bit of hyperbole. I think Strasburg is a bit more analogous. So he's got 10 career appearances since at least 1901. He's in the top 10 for strikeouts through his first 10 appearances. Kerry Wood in 1998 with 94. Herb Score, there you go, 1955, 92. Jose De Leon, 1983, 85. Hideo Nomo, 1995, had 83. Dwight Gooden in 1984 had 80. Masahiro Tanaka in 2014 and 79. Shout out to Tanaka there. Strasburg in 2010 had 79, and Skeens has 78 in 2028. If he can stay healthy, he's going to have a great career, of course. Dan, what makes Paul Skeens so special? Other than just kind of being the strikeout king, his ERA is like 2.12. Is it just the fact that this guy being the number one pick, being, a champion in the College World Series, coming from really kind of an interesting college career? Like, it's not as though he was a blue chip recruit out of high school. Is it the intangibles for Skeens? Is it the fact that he throws really hard? What is it about him that makes him not only such a dominant pitcher, but such an incredible sort of superstar that we're all just hoping we can watch for 20 years?
He has the talent and he has the mental makeup. Like, this is a guy who really wants to learn whatever he can about pitching and takes it to heart and does a great job with it. Like, he really developed himself while he was at LSU, and he's just been pretty much unhittable as he's moved up through the minors and now to Pittsburgh. Pretty much everything that he does it well, and he just takes some whatever he's taught and puts it to good use. This guy started at Air Force, as you pointed out, not exactly recruited very highly out of high school, and yet LSU saw something in him, and he basically just took what he was given and has combined that with some impressive natural talent, and what you're seeing is the product of that.
Yeah, he's a lot like the home run king Charlie Condon from UGA, right? Another guy who was kind of overlooked as in the recruiting process, and so we love these underdogs, and he has that underdog mentality. Dad always talks about how important that is in college athletics. When you're kind of overlooked by tons of recruiters, you just develop this kind of intangibles that's really hard to shake, because it is so hard for someone like Skeens, who's sort of scrapped his way to this spot right now, to shake that type of mentality. Whereas, someone like Strasburg, we were talking about him when he was 15, same thing with Bryce Harper, et cetera. So, we'll see with Skeens. It's an exciting time for Pittsburgh Pirates baseball every time that guy gets on the mound, and hopefully they do right by the city and build around one of the most exciting pitchers in the game right now, and don't do the thing that the Pirates have done so often, which, as Mitch pointed out, which is basically just sell off talent to keep the payroll low. This is a major market, and they deserve to have a baseball team that they can be excited about. So
other thing that really sets them apart from everyone else, like, we see so many young pitchers who are just hunting strikeouts and don't really know how to pitch. And Paul Skeens knows how to pitch. That's one thing that, like, in my foray into college baseball this year, I have really appreciated compared to some people you see at the minors or some young pitchers in the majors, is that guys at the college level, they just learn how to pitch and learn how to work their way out of tougher situations. And you don't see that much show them at the major league level, because guys just have in their heads, oh, I'm going 4 or 5 innings as hard as I can, and then the bullpen will come get me. And you can't really do that at the college level, because you don't have that ace bullpen available. You have to learn how to work your way out of those situations. And Skeens understands how to do that.
That's the thing that, like, stuck out to me, was like his ability either to self-scout or to have people around him that sort of can point out things that he needs to improve. Like adding, he gets into the professionals and he's, already got the good fastball, and he's got a good slider, and he's got a pretty decent changeup, and then he just adds like that splinker kind of splitter sinker pitch. It's just like so much filthier than what anyone else throws. Like it's the break on it is like nuts. It has 2 more inches of sink and 4 more inches of run compared to the average right-handed splitter, and it's 8 miles per hour faster. Like his ability to just like adapt to a new pitch and be like, oh yeah, like I need like a harder breaking ball, and then just to be able to like instantly put it in play with like such devastating numbers is like crazy for a young pitcher. And probably speaks against like his maturity because of college.
Yeah, like there's one story about him talking with his pitching coach at LSU, Wes Johnson, who's now the coach at Georgia. When he developed his slider, he's having success with it in games, and he actually tells his pitching coach, yeah, this is working well against these hitters, but it's nowhere near ready for the major leagues. Like,
yeah, and that's
what kind of kid does that?
Yeah, that's the type of mentality that really gets you to the major leagues. And Dan, you're right about the college pitcher learning to get out of those situations, Dad. I mean, you watched this at West Virginia all year long, all those games. I mean, and to be honest with you, Maisie kind of had a short leash with some of his starters. But you know, you have to leave them in. Like you just have to sometimes, and they just have to get out of jams. And they, especially the starters, I mean, they sit there and they struggle for a very long time before they're pulled because there's just nothing on the back end of the bullpen. And then if a couple guys get hurt on a college team that's on the bullpen, then you're really in a position where it's like you give the ball to the starter and you say, hey, man, you're going to have to – if you get guys on every inning, you're going to have to work out of it. Like unless you give up 14 runs, we're not taking you out. And so you do learn some of that maturity in college that I think sometimes is lost, like you're saying in the major leagues, where they don't learn to pitch out of those situations or go to new pitches or think about how a pitch could get major league ready, et cetera.
Yeah, because in the minors, like you never have those situations where, okay, if we lose this game, we have to work our way through the losers bracket and figure out how to manage our bullpen for that. It's always, we got another game tomorrow. Fine, we'll just figure it out. And the other thing about it is the minor leagues, nobody cares what your record is. Like if you win a championship at the AA or AAA level, that's cool, but nobody remembers. If you make it to Omaha, people remember that in college baseball. So there's a team goal there, whereas the minor leagues, yeah, you're a team, but at the same time, the individual goals are far more important to most of those players.
You know, it's like Jack said yesterday, where Joe, I'm sorry, I get you guys mixed up. Sorry, Jack. I do the same thing with him. As Joe said yesterday, we were watching. It was like the 5th inning. He struck somebody, and I said, "You know, Dad, 12 months ago today, he was pitching college baseball in the College World Series. I mean, 12 months later, here he is in a minor league in a sold-out stadium, shutting down the Mets." You know, it's kind of an amazing journey. And that, by the way, Mitch, that place was packed last night. I mean, there was not an open seat. I've never been, you know, I've only been there. This is really my first game there. Joe pitched when I guess Pitt played West Virginia. It was the first time I was at the park. Was my first baseball game there, and MLB game, and it was packed. There was not a seat open.
Well, you can't keep Yinzers away from fireworks night. I'd like to think it's Paul Scenes, but it is absolutely fireworks night. I used to go to fireworks. So my dad has a running joke. We did fireworks night at Three River Stadium when I was a kid, and that back then they used to light them inside the stadium. And one like shot and almost like hit our seat, and it freaked me out. And I was probably 5 or 4 years old. He retells the story like I was 16, and he's done it for 30 years. He's like, yeah, he was like 17 years old, started crying in the middle of the fire. But the fireworks in the middle of a stadium is nuts. But yeah, and then, yeah.
I mean, what could you do with how Three River Stadium was closed? It was enclosed.
Yeah, right, exactly.
That is so Pittsburgh to just be like, let's just shoot them off inside. Like it'll be fine. This is going to be
everybody
epic.
did that back then.
Back in the day, yeah, absolutely.
Like you get fireworks indoors at the Super Bowl when New Orleans hosts it.
You did, yeah.
The lights went out.
That also happened.
Too, yeah. Shout out to my old home, New Orleans, who couldn't keep the electricity running during the Super Bowl. It was like so New Orleans. Oh my God. Shout out to New Orleans though. Love it. If you're ever there, go.
Every city in the country in this show apparently.
Yeah, for real. Okay, so before we get to our last little MLB segment here, I got to talk a little bit about Beard Vet Coffee. That's where I went earlier when Dad was talking about his hat there, which I got him for Father's Day. Little
Nice
4th of
hat. Thank
July
you.
Astros
Thank
hat.
you.
Yeah, always fun. Little US of A for Houston there. I thought you'd like that hat. So, but I was getting more coffee to fill up here. The Beard Vet Coffee is just the best. You got to get it. So if you listen to the show right now, you go to beardvet.com. That's beard as in beard, vet as in Army veteran, beardvet.com. And you can pick from so many different options. You got the K-Cups if you like the Keurigs. You got the whole bean if you want to grind them up yourself, which is what I like to do. Or you got just the ground coffee. Different types of flavors too. I know a lot of people like flavored coffee. It's not really my thing, but I work with a lot of people who love flavored coffee. They drink all the blueberry stuff. They got that. So if you like that stuff, you can get that as well at beardvet.com. And you can go to all your beard tinctures. So if you got a beard and you want to keep it groomed, they have availability for that as well. And you put in the promo code Godzilla. Promo code Godzilla, get you 10% off, and they'll ship it to you quick. So for those listening, I know Dad talks about Beard Vet on his show as well, Monday through Friday. At least I'm pretty sure he does. He loves Beard Vet coffee. And, you know, the promo code Godzilla really can help with some of the savings there. They get it to you quickly, logistically. What an incredible company able to do that. So don't miss out on the Beard Vet savings here. Beardvet.com, beardvet.com. Promo code Godzilla, just like the Godzilla of Truth sitting right in to the bottom right of my screen right now. Promo code Godzilla, and that'll get you your cup of coffee. We're going to talk a little bit about baseball just to end the episode. You know, Dad, I was reminded when you called me Joe. I mean, that never really bothers me because I know you. You're always calling me different names and mix me up. But I am glad you apologized because Joe does not like it. He would prefer if you remembered that your sons have two different names. So so a shout out to Joe there, who is has never really liked it when you mix us up. Which, to be honest, I mean, that's fair because I'm like, what? I don't know, 14 years older than him. So it should be, you know, we're not exactly twins here, Dad. But
Well, I do it.
yeah.
I do it all the time.
Yeah,
The names are interchangeable. I call you Joe. I call Joe Jack constantly. I got to do a better job at that. But yeah. And by the way, speaking of Joe, he's he leaves. You know, he hurt his back. He was at Cape Cod League, and he hurt his back, and he didn't hurt his back pitching. He hurt his back playing golf, Mitch. Playing golf.
Uh-oh.
They had an off day. He's never played golf in his life.
Oh,
So I'm gonna go
yeah.
play golf. I'm like, well, okay. I mean, I don't really think of it. I said, well, just go easy. So he rents left-handed clubs, plays golf, gets up the next day, he can't walk. He can't get out of the bed. His back. So he had therapy, and the trainers anyway. They just he couldn't pitch there. They got to get new arms in, so they sent him home. So he's been on campus doing back therapy with the trainers. Now it feels better. He pitched a bullpen yesterday that he said went really good. And now they're shipping him off to the Appalachian League with the Kingsport Axemen. And he leaves on Monday from campus to go to pitch for the Axemen, and they're going to start him. So they're trying to convert him to a starter, a Sunday starter. So they want him to get innings. So that's their plan with him. We'll see what happens. But he hurt his back playing golf.
Well, I mean, between
unbelievable.
The pitching motion and the golf swing are the probably two most unnatural things to do for your body. So it's especially as a pitcher, I'm sure he's using a lot of ground force up, back torque, knee torque. With me, I'm so whistling.
Well,
I don't care.
Look, and Nate, you shot 65 this week or 69, right?
Yeah.
69.
Jeez. Oh, man.
And what was your other one? Is 72 or something like that?
Wow.
Yeah, I shot 73-69 last week. Yeah.
Jesus,
Yeah.
I shot a
So
99 yesterday. Oh, my God.
yeah.
On the tour.
Nate. Look, for real, Nate. The first time I met Nate's dad. Now I don't really like golf. I like it sort of, but every time I play, I just I'm filled with a lot of pent up rage that I just have to kind of work through. So golf is just not a game for me. It's a game that just makes me kind of angry.
Golf brings out my worst skill. Like I have no hand eye. Like when I play basketball, I'm not the best shooter or the layup guy, but I can play some defense. On golf, you don't have a chance to I'll go play some defense. No, you got to keep.
Yeah, nor can
hitting
you
that
blame
little
anyone
ball.
you can't blame anyone but yourself.
It's never a
when I
bad
fir-
team. Yeah.
Yeah, when I
blame
when
other
I
people all the time.
yeah, me too. Blame the clubs.
Did you
But
sneeze?
when I first met Nate's dad, I was like, oh yeah, Nate's pretty good at golf. You know, he shoots like in the 80s, and and his dad was like, he shoots in the 70s. I was like,
Oh,
okay. I'll never forget that, because at the time he was shooting in the 80s. So I was like, I don't know, man. It's been a while since you played with him, but down there in Corpus, that's the grass that I guess you're used to playing. So look, we got 4 minutes. Enough of Nate's golf game here. Let's do some MLB best bets just for Saturday. We'll start. I know Dan always has a couple. Then we'll go to Dad. Those are our two. And then Nate or Mitch, if you want to jump in there in the hour, you can. But Dan, go ahead and give us a couple games that you like, a couple best bets you like just for the weekend for MLB.
All right, let's see. Excuse me. All right. I'm gonna go with the Nationals against the Cardinals. Mackenzie Gore is pitched pretty well for Washington this season, and I'm just not sold on the St. Louis team. So, I mean, Gore's held 4 of his past 5 opponents to 2 earned runs or less. So I think that's probably a pretty decent spot for the Nationals, who have actually been better than I expected. I mean, 41-47 is not exactly great by any means, but it's not too terrible given what this Nationals team has been in the past. So I think that there's pretty decent value there. And then my other one is I'm going to go with Kansas City on the run line against Colorado. This Rockies team is just terrible. Lugo has been outstanding for the Royals all year. You're not going to get much value at minus 170, so just take the Royals to cover the 1.5 here.
Royals to cover the 1.5. That's the Fighting John Fredericks. He loves Kansas City. Dad, you got a couple games. I knew you had like 5 yesterday. You're kind of getting back into the handicap in here. What do you like today?
Yeah, I went 3-2 yesterday. Go to Godzilla Wins Daily Picks. That's where I'm picks are every day. We don't do Johnny's Quick Picks anymore. It's redundant. So just go to Daily Picks. I'm up for the season. I'm up in baseball. I was up in hockey. I'm up in everything. So you want to go to dailypicks.com. And, I know you guys are like, oh, well, look, I bet against the money line. And I'm up in baseball, and I bet games almost every day. And I did the same thing last season. This is very difficult to do when you're up against that money line. Baseball is the hardest thing to beat because it grinds you out. So far, so good. We're up again. I don't care who's playing or who's pitching. I think it's Hunter Brown tonight. I'm betting the Astros every day. I bet streaks. Everybody knows that. They're just winning every day. They're finding ways to win. Who knows if Altuve's playing? So I like the Astros basically. I think they're minus 115 over Minnesota. I'm just going to stick with that. And that's really the only game I like. If I had to bet another game, it's going to be Seattle. I mean, Tampa Bay is just pathetic. I mean, I saw them, that 4-game series against the Astros. I think they won 1 game, but they're just playing horrible baseball. I mean, base running mistakes, errors. I mean, they just look flat. Since Romano went down, their closer, they're just horrible. I mean, this is a team that a lot of people thought the Blue Jays would be like the Astros, right? Where they had all these young, good players, and they just suck, and they're playing really bad baseball now. So if I had a second bet, it would be Seattle. But I like the Astros with Hunter Brown tonight, who's been absolutely unhittable in the past month of June. Lights out. I'm going with the Astros minus 115.
You're listening to the Godzilla One Saturday Picks show here at our new time slot, 9 to 11 Eastern time. Don't change the dial. Coming up, Jay Delsing going to join us. We're going to do a little soccer, a little Wimbledon, maybe a little John Deere Classic. We'll see. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Jay, 9 o'clock Eastern time, 10 o'clock Eastern time.
listening to Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network. For a deeper dive without the jive, visit the website of winners, GodzillaWins.com. Let's get back to the show with the guys in the know, John, Jack, and Nate. It's Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network.
All right, we are back here. You're listening to the Godzilla Wins Saturday show. We're going to be joined by Jay Delsing of Jay Delsing Golf here. As soon as he is available, we'll get him on the show to talk about his show on John Fredericks Network, which I believe airs first time today. And we'll talk to him about all sorts of different topics here, because this is our Around the World in Sports segment this hour. It is July, so we got a kind of dealer's choice to talk about whatever you want, really. Tough to fill a sports show in July sometimes. Not exactly the most active month for sports, but here we are. Should be a lot of fun. So before we let's just jump right into it, Dan, because when Dad gets back in here, I'm going to have him do the My Pillow read. So, Dan, you wrote an article for Godzilla Wins, and Nate and Mitch, y'all can jump in on this as well. And Jay, you are here. Oh, welcome in Jay. Glad to see you. Dan, before we get to that, we're going to talk to Jay here for just a minute.
Yeah, of course.
Jay, so before I forget, because we forgot last week, and then Nance told me not to forget again, so I put it in the run sheet. So, Jay, your show is on the John Fredericks Radio Network now, I believe, or debuting here July 6th. So just tell our listeners a little bit about your show, how they can listen to it. Obviously, if they have the app for John Fredericks, they'll be able to listen to that way, but there's other ways to get into the show as well. So just tell us a little bit about your own show and the now partnership between you and John.
Yeah, good morning, and thanks again for having me. I'm delighted to be with your dad and all you guys on the John Fredericks Media Network. We're gonna do the show on Saturday mornings from 11 to 12. So I think it follows right after this show on Saturday, and then again on Sunday. And one of the things that's cool, guys, is just because I look like this and I'm old, I've met a lot of people through the game. Some great guests that I've had on the show. Amanda Bolionis, I think, is going to be on next week. We've had Jim Nance on a couple of times, Faraday, John Daly, Wayne Gretzky. So we wind up with a bunch of really cool people. One of the coolest interviews I had, guys, was Vince Gill, who has won more Grammy Awards than any musician ever. But guys, all he wants to talk about is golf, and so it's really a fun show. We're not really teaching you how to hit a 5-iron. We're really telling stories. We're talking about raising money. We're talking about the Minister of Fun. We're talking about anything that comes across our mind that is interesting. One of the things that's cool about golf, though, guys, is it raises a bunch of money for those in need. And I had Jack and Barbara Nicholas on the show since 2004. Jack and Barbara by themselves have raised over $250 million for children's hospitals. So we have a lot of fun, but there's some purpose to it too. So I'm delighted to be with you guys. I love talking sports. I love hanging out with you. So yeah, we're gonna talk golf and have some fun.
Hey, someone will teach the boomers how to hit the mirror button so we can read their stuff, read their shirts.
Yeah. So the shirts there say Minister of Fun there, which is the nickname that Jay gave my father, John Fredericks, and he was kind enough to make a bunch of sweatshirts, which shout out to the sweatshirts, Jay. I got two of them a couple weeks ago, and or like a week or two ago, and it's a little too hot here in Mississippi to put
it's great
on a
July,
sweatshirt.
isn't it?
Yeah.
I just turned my air conditioner down so I could put
I'm not putting on a hoodie in North Florida.
Yeah, but look, winter will be here soon enough for most of us. We can wear our Minister of Fun sweatshirts. For the show, if you're in radio, you kind of are used to things kind of just show up at the house. Different products or whatever will show up to the house that you have to kind of try so you can promote them if it's a sponsorship or whatever. So I'm kind of used to that happening, and my partner is used to it happening too, where I'm like, oh, look at this, and then I just start sampling whatever shows up in the mail, which sometimes I should probably check to make sure it's actually from Godzilla Wins and not just something someone sent me in the mail that I immediately sample. But the sweatshirt, they're really well-made sweatshirts, and my partner was like, because she was like, what is the Minister of Fun? And I was like, oh, it's another nickname for my dad. He's got like 100, but we made these t-shirts. And she was like, the sweatshirt fits incredibly well. And I was like, yeah, I know. It's like a really well-made sweatshirt. So thanks, Jay, for the
We
sweatshirt.
only do stuff high quality here at John Frederick's Media Network, man. That's the way we roll.
That's
There you
right.
go.
High quality. Dad, speaking of high quality, why don't you tell us a little bit about MyPillow?
I'll tell you what, the bus ships out from Milwaukee tomorrow at 6 a.m. I got a bunch of people tag teaming with me on it coming here tonight from the Pennsylvania GOP. So we're going to have a full bus going to the convention, and we are completely outfitted there with MyPillow. We don't travel without it. We got the MyPillow, we got the mattress topper, we got the comforter, we got the whole thing. And but look, if you were in my house right now, every blanket MyPillow, every towel MyPillow, every dish towel MyPillow, every pillow is MyPillow, right? 2.0. My socks, MyPillow, my slippers, MyPillow, my slip-on things for the beach, and Ann's and Joe's, MyPillow. Why? Because they have great products. I mean, it's very simple. Great products at a great price, right? And I'm all about value, great products, great price. Not only that, Mike Lindell's a friend of mine. The guy's got, he's got a cash company, right? They cut his line of credit. They debanked him. They deplatformed him. He has no middleman. I mean, the guy's running now a cash business, right? And so you got to get the inventory out the door. When you're in a cash business, you got to move product, which means you got to take lower margins. That's what Mike is doing. He's cut the middleman out. That's why we get such great deals. Couple the fact is, the guy, whatever you think of his politics, guy's a salt of the earth. I'm telling you, this guy's solid, man. He's a patriot. Came back from a cocaine addict, was a degenerate gambler, betting $10,000 a football game, turned his life around, built this great company, and now all this stuff's happened to him. But doesn't matter because he got a great product that's to our benefit because there's no middleman. There's no big box stores. So there's something there for you. I believe in value. He's got it. Just go to mypillow.com/Godzilla, mypillow.com/Godzilla, promo code Godzilla to get all these deals right now. He's got a bunch of great deals for $25, free shipping over $75 order. These are you're never going to find these anywhere. Sheets, comforters, pillows, towels. Like when I go to a hotel now, I don't travel without two things. With my pillow, because I cannot stand a hotel pills. I travel all the time, and I take one MyPillow towel because I can't stand the hotel towels. So I'll just hang it up and dry it. Hey, saves on the economy, right? Saves the environment thing. I can't travel without this stuff. It's that great. Let's go to MyPillow. Hey, now I'm part of the green community. Yay me, right? So whole gamut. Let's go to mypillow.com/Godzilla. Promo code Godzilla. Get the best deals on MyPillow. It's about quality of life. You're going to have a better quality of life. I'm all about quality of life. That's why I have this hat on. This hat gives me quality of life because I know my son got it for me on Father's Day. See this shirt that Jay got me? This sweatshirt? Jay, high quality, super comfy. Quality of life.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jay.
Quality of life. Cash business like he's selling oranges in Bushwick in 1901.
It is cash business.
Cash
There's
business,
no credit.
baby.
Cash business, baby.
Cash business.
Selling pillows from the side of the road.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Cash business, baby. We love it. All right, Dan. Let's talk some sports here. So
yeah, let's go to from high quality to no quality.
Yeah, Greg Berhalter and the American team. A shout out to your Uruguay USA article that got a ton of clicks on the website. People who read that really liked it. So shout out to that. And that happens, Dan, all the time to you in the soccer stuff. It's kind of funny. You write about soccer so well, and you do it all the time. And so every time there's something like this happening, it has to be USA, obviously, because that's just the most popular. But but it always, one of your picks will always blow up. So shout out to that, and then of course shout out to Mitch, whose Steelers preview has also done really great.
Would have been nice if it was the Canada Peru one, because that one I hit a correct score on.
Oh, love those correct scores. If you like to bet soccer, the correct score is the way to go. If you can hit those, the plus money's great.
You hit it on that one. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think the line on that one was plus 550.
Oh, love that. Dan, tell us why you think Greg Berhalter, coach of the America Team USA, should be fired.
I mean, because we touched on it last week. This team is undisciplined. It's not making the most of its talent, and it's really less than the sum of its parts. Like, you look at this U.S. roster, and all but like 3 players ply their trade in Europe, in some of the best leagues in Europe. Like, most of these guys play in the Premier League, Serie A, the Bundesliga. And then you look at Canada, which over half of its roster plays here in MLS. Which country is still in this Copa America? Canada's into the semifinals, and the United States failed to get out of the group stage. And Canada had a tougher group than the United States. Canada's group included 3 South American nations. The United States had a group of Panama, a fellow CONCACAF nation, Bolivia, the worst South American side by a mile, and Uruguay was the only decent opponent in there, and they couldn't get better than 3rd place. I mean, we are 2 years away from the World Cup coming here, and it's not going to be back for another 3 decades after that happens. U.S. soccer cannot squander this opportunity, and it looks like that's exactly what they're going to do if they do not move on from Greg Berhalter.
So,
Jack, can I jump in and just say something? I just feel like
Yeah.
this team doesn't work hard. I feel like they forgot who they are. You know, we've got good players. What about the results and just being hardworking? A hardworking team that gets out and balls and quits being so like prima donna-ish. You know, okay, we've got good players. We can play on the world stage. Go play. And guess what? It's just like golf. You duck hook one over here, you chip it out, you knock it on the green, you knock a 20-footer in. It's a 4.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. We don't have that hardworking mentality, and we're complacent in the U.S. game right now. I think he's got to go. I hope they get Klopp. I don't know if they can.
Klopp would be huge.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Klopp would be huge. But, Jay, you absolutely nailed it. I mean, that's been a hallmark of this team pretty much Greg Berhalter's entire tenure, even going back to Jurgen Klinsmann. I mean, that was the last time that we really saw this U.S. team fight through any adversity. Like, I don't know how much is coaching, how much is this generation just not really having the mental strength. But you go back 15 years ago when Bob Bradley was the manager, and one of the most annoying things about his U.S. teams was they would tend to give up a goal in the first 15 minutes, but they would fight their way back. Like, you go through that group stage at the 2010 World Cup, gave up a goal in 4 minutes to England, fought back and got a draw. They give up 2 goals in the first half to Slovenia, fight back to get a draw, and they should have had a win if not for a terrible refereeing decision. And then they snatched the winner against Algeria in the first minute of stoppage time when they had to have a win to go through. Like, that was the hallmark of Bob Bradley's teams. And it has been the exact opposite under Greg Berhalter. This team, the first sign of adversity, they fold like a cheap paper fan.
No, and they have no mental fortitude. I mean, coaching, it reeks of coaching. I mean, that last game, it was almost like they were all with that inexperienced official. And then obviously he blew calls. But they were ready for it. They were already whining and complaining. Pulisic at the end of the game still complaining about it. You just lost. Have some heart, have some dignity, have some pride. And you're right. You can't squander. I mean, I remember sitting back in 1994 with my cousins on vacation, family vacation, just like, oh, I can't wait. You know, it's coming. It's coming. You know, the 10 years. It's 30 years.
Yeah.
And we're not. I don't feel any closer, even though the players are all better.
Yeah. And Mitch, to your point, I mean, during that match, you have Berhalter pointing out to his team, "Hey, Panama and Bolivia are tied at 1, so all we have to do is hold what we've got." And Uruguay scores on that set piece. Like, what are you doing thinking about other matches when all you have to do is get the win against Uruguay? You're in a scoreless match. You need 1 goal to win. And yeah, that goal shouldn't have counted. The refereeing was terrible all night. But you know what never happened in that match? The United States never put one in the net. And you cannot win a soccer match if you don't score at least once.
Right.
I'm sorry. Like we didn't even have a goal disallowed by VAR or a terrible refereeing decision. Nothing got past Uruguay's keeper. You have no right to complain because Panama won.
Yeah.
And that's what Canada's doing, guys.
Yeah.
They're gritty.
Yeah, Canada has 2 goals this entire tournament, but they play tough defense. And this side believes that they're never out of a match as long as they stick to their system. Like they lost their first match to Argentina, but there was never a sense that they're completely outclassed. This is hopeless. Canada fought that match very well and very nearly had a chance to take a point home from it. They're going to get another crack at Argentina in the semifinals. Do I think that will go well for Canada? No, but they're the ones who were getting that opportunity to test themselves while the U.S. is sitting on the couch. Like this has all gone completely wrong for the national team.
So the sharks are swirling here for Berhalter. Dan, and this is a question kind of for our listeners who might not be as locked into soccer as some people. Can we learn, like when the Olympics starts, I believe the soccer team is a totally different makeup.
Yes.
Can we learn anything? Can we learn anything about the USA men's team from the Olympic team? I mean, they have a different coach. It's under 23, all that stuff. But is there anything that we can learn, or should we think about this as completely 2 separate options, 2 separate teams with no correlation at all?
I mean, it's probably 85 to 90% 2 separate teams with little correlation. You might find a player or 2 who can help in 2026 from the Olympic roster, but for the most part, there's not really much that's going to come out of the Olympics because you're right. It's all U23. It's very different from the women. The women will send their full national team roster to the Olympics because the Olympics are a big deal in the women's game. The men have not done that since 1988. So like none of the countries that you see will have more than 2 or 3 players from their standard national team. So men's soccer at the Olympics is not really a great way to gauge much of anything.
But we can tune into the women's soccer, of course.
Yeah, the women, that will be the equivalent of a World Cup. Like it's a major tournament for them. For the men, it's really an exhibition to see what your future looks like.
Well, look, we'll see what happens with Berhalter here in the future. I think the panel here is in agreement that the team just lacks some grit, lacks some focus, and possibly some maturity. A lot of that does come down to coaching. So we're not the only.
And the thing that scares me is we have no competitive matches now between now and 2026 because, like, yeah, we'll have the Gold Cup next year, which is CONCACAF's tournament, but the Gold Cup is such a joke. I mean, because it's always U.S., Mexico. Now Canada might get in there because they're apparently the top team in CONCACAF with the U.S. a mess and Mexico not any better. So I don't know.
Shout out to Canada. Shout out to the Canadians there.
What Canada has done the past couple cycles has been outstanding to watch. I mean, Canada was such an afterthought in men's soccer. They've been great in the women's game for a long time, but Canada was just so poor in men's soccer, and they recognized, hey, we've got a good group of talent here. We need to find some quality coaches, let them do what they need to do, and see if we can use our size and our resources to maybe we won't compete with the Mexicos and the United States of the world, but we can still get into the World Cup, and they've gone past that.
So we'll see what's in store for the men's team here in the future. Copa America is still going on as well. We're going to turn our attention to Wimbledon, but before we do that, Dad, you're out there now. You're in Pittsburgh now, but it should be pretty close to time for you to get down to Rosie's, getting your skybox. So tell us a little bit about how people can get involved with Rosie's Gaming Emporium in Virginia this summer with Colonial Downs opening up probably here in the next week or so.
The next week, well, opens up on July 11th. Obviously, I'm not going to be there at the Republican National Convention. I got to go there for 2 weeks. I'm going to miss the first week, but as soon as I get back, we're going to Rosie's, baby. We can't wait. Colonial Downs, they're opening up on July 11th. Now they race Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Post time 1 p.m. on Thursday and Saturday. Friday is 4. This is one of the greatest racetracks, folks. If you've never been there, if you're anywhere in the Virginia, Delaware, Maryland, Delmarva area, West Virginia, it's the most beautiful track in the country, second only, I think, to Saratoga. And I say that all the time. I put Oaklawn third. I've been to all of them, and it's just a beautiful track. It's a turf course. They've got major stake races coming up, a whole bunch of them, and Virginia now in horse racing is big time. They got the Virginia Derby. They got 3 major stakes races, and I'm going to have my suite there. We can't wait to go, but you want to get tickets now, right? You don't want to wait, and you don't want to be. Look, admission is free, but you want to get a nice box seat so you can really enjoy it. Upper level, they got great restaurants there. The food is fantastic. Plus, Rosie's Gaming is right downstairs. Plus, they've got the athletics book. You can bet anything you want, right? You can bet all your baseball games, college football, and that starts at the end of August. Just got to go upstairs. All you got to do is go to colonialdowns.com, colonialdowns.com. You want to get your tickets now. This just plan a weekend there, plan a day there, because you got to have a lot of fun. And if you go to Rosie's, the slot machines downstairs, biggest jackpots, biggest payouts in the country. Why? Because they have the least takeout from the state government, which is why the Virginia General Assembly set it up. So shout out to them for doing a good thing. More money back to the players, bigger payouts, bigger jackpots. But Class A racing, I can't wait to go. Probably next season. Ann and I are probably going to buy a horse. Can't do it now. We're just too busy with the convention. But we're definitely getting in the game. It is so much fun that you're going to have. It's just the most beautiful track. Soon as you walk in, you're going to be like, wow. It's just, and you can bring your family, bring your kids. It's so much fun. See them come out. The horses come out. Go to colonialdowns.com, colonialdowns.com. Racing starting July 11th. It's coming up on Thursday. Let's go.
You're buying a horse?
Full circle
Probably
moment.
next year.
love it.
Yeah,
You know,
not this
like
year.
a horse.
We're too busy.
I could see it in your eyes that you were processing this for the first time, Jack, while he was doing the live read.
You always learn so much about. I always learn a lot about what Dad's been up to by listening to the radio. So I was not aware that you were buying a horse. Although I might have to text Ann and confirm, because sometimes you say stuff and then Ann says, "No, we're not doing that." But you know,
naming possibility Godzilla of track.
You have to.
or
with
I was
with
thinking
your
my horse
mom,
2.0.
With your mom, nothing can be like sprung on her. Like you gotta, it takes time. You just gotta warm up to the idea. So I'm saying, hey, we can't do it now because obviously I got 2 weeks at the convention. We got an election coming up, but next year will be a perfect time. So she didn't say no, right? So no means no, but when maybe means to me, there's only 2 things with mom. There's no. Well, that means no. And then there's everything else, which means yes. So she didn't say no, which that means to me, yes. Right?
Great.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
the way
How's
this
you
thing
started
works.
your online campaign to get a racehorse today?
Exactly.
Yeah.
we
So
go.
it does take a while for you to convince her to do something so ridiculous as buying a racehorse. But hey, look, I'm for it. I mean, I support whatever makes you happy, Dad. But I do learn a lot. One time I tuned into your political show, which I do about once every 3.5 years, and but this was like a while ago, and I was like listening to it. I was like, what? Let's see what the big guy's up to. So I turn it on, and you're like talking about like some medical scare that you had to your whole listeners. Oh, I had to go in for this, and this was like a real problem, and so I was out for, I don't know what it was, colonoscopy or something, but it was like something important. And I'm like, this is the first I'm hearing of it. So every once in a while you learn
You
something.
got to
new
tune
about
in more.
that. Yeah, I know, for
The
real.
moral is you got to tune in.
He's trying to get
Don't
you
talk
in. He's
like
trying to
this.
lock you in.
Yeah, I'm just busy. I can't listen to his show all the time. But maybe I'll tune in a little bit more here. If that's the way you're going to deliver.
When you lived in Reno, you guys sometimes would go out all night. And of course, I was on at 3 a.m. Reno time. And a couple times you guys came in 3 sheets to the wind, as they say, and you tuned me in Well, you tune me in, and then you'd be texting me, and so that was always kind of funny when you guys would come in and tune me in at 3 a.m. Right? That's what Tulsi Gabbard does in Hawaii. She'll text me. It's like midnight there, and it's kind of funny when you got that time zone difference.
Yes.
Yeah. Well.
Oh.
Yeah. Dan remembers it well. We used to put you on when you were on CNN. We used to put you on at the bar that Nate and I worked at like whatever. I mean, Don Lemon was on pretty late, so it was like maybe 8 or 9. People be like a Friday night. People be like, "Why is CNN? Why you got Don Lemon on?" It's my dad's on the show. Tried to catch up with him. So kind of a weird situation there. Always interesting. Okay, let's talk a little Wimbledon. Enough of this. So Wimbledon's going on right now. I want to talk about the men's first, and we'll talk about the women's. A lot of interesting things going on at the men's. Dan, we'll start with you. You wrote an article, I think, last week about how to bet Wimbledon, which some of that's a little evergreen because the tournament started. Some of it could still apply, but so from what I've been following, Alcaraz had a big win yesterday, kind of struggled a little bit. Seems like he won Wimbledon last year. Seems like he's coming into form. Of course, Novak plays today, I believe, to advance. A lot of other good players here. And then, of course, I think Andy Murray, I guess his farewell tour, Wimbledon, a lot of great moments for that. So, Dan, we'll start with you and just kind of dealer's choice, whatever you want to talk about as far as Wimbledon. Then maybe we'll go to Mitch, Nate, and Jay.
I don't know why my phone went off there.
That happens. Don't worry about it.
All right.
Tulsi Gabbard.
If Tulsi Gabbard has this number, I don't know what in the world's going on there. But anyway, so yeah, Alcaraz had a pretty tough match there, and it does kind of reinforce just how difficult it is to do the double. Like that was one of my key tips was avoid the double when you're deciding who to bet as far as Wimbledon goes, because it is just so difficult to win the French Open, which is played on clay, the slowest surface there is, and then turn around with barely any recovery time, go over to London and adjust your body to grass. So you go from the slowest surface on the tour to the fastest, and you don't really have much time to recover from the emotional fatigue, the physical fatigue of grinding out 2 weeks on clay, and now you got to go do it again on grass. Like it's really tough. If anyone can do it, it's Alcaraz, but he's got a pretty tough draw ahead of him. I mean, Sinner's waiting there in the semifinals. If Djokovic's health can hold up, then that's a potential finals opponent. And Zverev, who has never really played well at Wimbledon for some reason, it's tough to figure it out because he isn't the kind of player who just doesn't play well on grass. Like he has a win in his career over Roger Federer on grass, which is something that just in and of itself is very hard to do. So he can handle the grass, but he's got a pretty good draw for where he is. He's the number 4 seed, and his quarter seems to set up well for him to make a run to the semifinals. And if Djokovic's health doesn't hold up, then he's probably got a really strong path to the final. So it's going to be difficult for Alcaraz. It's hard to fade him because he is so good on every surface, but it's just tough to see it holding up for the rest of the week with how difficult the matches are going to get.
Yeah, I mean, and he was shaky against TFO, and Sinner's still, in the mix, and Sinner's looked great. I mean, he's the 1 seed, so of course it's, easier. Theoretically, although with these tennis tournaments, I'm not sure it's ever really that easy. But he looked great against his last match. So a lot of really good male tennis players still available. So we'll see. But I like Alcaraz too. I think for many reasons, just because it is hard to fade him on grass. But and Joker, of course, is always a threat as well. Mitch, I kind of figured you might want to talk a little bit about Andy Murray and kind of his farewell. But go ahead and take it whichever direction you want to.
Yeah, and I was going to, for the first segment when we were talking about what was the off-topic stuff. My friends always talk about this dead time of sports, but I love Wimbledon, especially when there's Olympics coming around. So it's not the dead time for me, but Wimbledon is so much fun, and we've watched it in my house for 30 plus years. And we watched Andy Murray's retirement speech, and it was I remember watching him when he finally broke through and won Wimbledon. It was emotional then, and watching him retire was emotional. And then that last question when he just said, I'm just broke down. I'm injured and I can't play. I want to play, but I can't play. Oh man, I mean that just strikes you in the feels, and it's just brings the heart, and why Wimbledon is the obviously the best tournament in sports for soccer. So that was emotional. And I'm a joke. I'm going to see Joker. I'm rooting for him to come back from these injuries and see if he can make a run into here. I also want to see what Ben Shelton can do. I know he's going to probably lose to Yannick Sinner if he can get past this round today. But yeah, I'm just excited. Now, what the reason why my Wimbledon's kind of tempered down a little bit, there's just no men's U.S. players that are very, competitive and they can win. So hopefully we'll get some moving up here soon. But Andy Murray's retirement, struck me in the feels for sure, and that's why I love Wimbledon so much.
Didn't you think it was kind of interesting, guys? Because Murray's had kind of a checkered, all of a sudden everybody loves him because he's quitting. When he was playing, they were kind of like, you're kind of an ass.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't really feel like he was all that beloved. I don't know. I thought it was really interesting, but man, England sure rallied around him. I thought it could go any, he's kind of like the McEnroe of his generation, where he was barky, he was chippy, he was off color or colorful, however you want to look at it with his comments. And then he retires and like, oh, we love you, man. So
yeah.
I don't know.
The line about Murray was always, he's British when he wins, he's Scottish when he loses.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, I think the men's tournament is going to be interesting to see what happens, because so many of the top players are still in it, and really anything could shake out that way. So we'll see. Let's move on to the women's. What we'll do is we'll talk men's, we'll talk women's, and then if anyone has some just betting favorites that they like through the weekend or through the tournament, Wimbledon, we can jump onto that as well. But I do want to save some time for the women's, because the women's does have Coco Gauff, an American who's is the 2 seed and should be fine to move forward. She looks great so far. But then there's a lot of stuff going on in the women's, Dan, and Mitch, that is kind of interesting. A lot of, I guess you could say, upsets. Raducanu would be one that sort of immediately comes to mind. She looked really good yesterday as well. Dan, what's happening in the women's bracket?
I mean, it's tough to call her that big of an upset, because she does have a Grand Slam title under her belt, and obviously she's the sentimental favorite for the British crowd because of her being English and them wanting to see a local win. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens with her. I mean, she's never gotten past the 4th round at Wimbledon, and really, other than that one win at the U.S. Open in 2021, she really hasn't had that deep Grand Slam run. So this is a bit of uncharted territory for her. We'll see if she holds up, but the highest seed in her part of the draw has already been bounced. She had the top seed in her quarter withdraw, so the opportunity is there for her to make a run to the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and then things really get interesting, because right now, as you pointed out, she would be on a collision course with Coco Gauff in the semifinals. And then on the other half of the bracket, things really get interesting in Rybakina's quarter, because she's got a 3rd round match with Caroline Wozniacki, who is trying to make a comeback right now. And so far it's going pretty decently. And then if that holds up, the potential quarterfinal match would be with Ons Jabeur, who they met in the 2022 Wimbledon final, and Jabeur has made the last 2 Wimbledon finals without leaving with the trophy. So that would be an epic collision in the quarters if that happens.
Yeah, Mitch, let's talk a little bit about the women's here. What's your take on some of these players on the collision course here? Wozniacki strikes me as kind of a really interesting one that Dan brought up, whose comeback is going really well. Better than, I guess, Naomi Osaka, who was bounced, I think, in the last round. Although she hasn't played a lot of tennis as of late. So what are you excited to see, Mitch, in the women's bracket?
I'm excited to see some United States competition. I mean, that's, that's what drew me to tennis back in the day, whether it was, Pete Sampras, Agassi, and, Jim Courier, or whether it's the Williams sisters. So yeah, I want to see Coco. I like them. We got an all-American matchup with Navarro and Goff tomorrow. So I'm really looking to see how far we can go. The Wozniak thing is, I love that too, because it's kind of the same thing as the Joker. You don't know what's going to happen. They could upset the entire tournament. They could go to this as far as their bodies will take them. So that storyline is impressive for me, or intriguing. But I want to see Coco Gauff. I want to see if she can make a run and bring Wimbledon home.
Yeah, I mean, Coco Gauff's like super fun, right? Because she sort of had her big coming out party, and then last year at Wimbledon, if I'm remembering correctly, was basically like the low point of her career. And then since then, she's won the U.S. Open, and now she seems to be totally back after sort of getting over those, which seems so much more common in tennis than other places. I think because like the youth, right? Like they all get sort of overwhelmed by being like prodigies at such a young age and being like exposed to so much at such a young age. So like credit to Coco Gauff for sort of bouncing back off like sort of a slump. When she really started to become famous.
Wasn't she 15 in 2019, guys, playing in Wimbledon? You're like, who is this person?
Yeah.
And now look at her. She's great.
Yep.
Golf, tennis, and gymnastics are always the three sports I think about when it comes to having to, and maybe chess. I mean, if you're really kind of stretching, but having to deal with being so successful at such a young age. Tennis is a lot like golf in that way, where the generational talents are generational at an early age and really have to develop the mental game to be able to do this for the long haul. We've talked, Jay, about some golfers who have in the recent months talked a lot about their mental health and how difficult it's been to just be on the women's or the men's PGA Tour, that grind. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that these guys start playing when they're so young, and it's such a singular sport like that, a little bit different than baseball, right? I mean, Joe and his teammates, they've been playing baseball at a high level for a really long time, but they're on a team. And sometimes you lose a game on a baseball team and you come off. I'm not saying Joe does this, but you'll come off and say, well, I mean, we'll get him next time. I didn't really have any, I didn't lose the game for anyone here. We just got to be better as a team and move forward with golf and tennis. It's a lot different because all the pressure is basically on you, and it's such a competitive sport for such a long time. So it can be fun to watch someone like Coco Gauff have a career like this for a long stretch of time. And if you're listening on the radio, I think Dad is just typing away on the computer, so that's why you can hear the keys bang.
I'm going in the private chat. I got to send you guys a chat.
Okay, great. Thanks.
And the stuff with Coco too, I know, when people talk about mental health, people would scoff at it a little bit, but I don't think they understand the media coverage overseas with tennis and how brutal it can be. And I know in the United States, we don't treat it as the fourth or fifth tier sport, but over there, it's one of the top three sports, and it can get brutal. And I felt bad for her when people were kind of rolling their eyes a little bit, calling it this is just this generation. So I'm glad to see her back, and let's see her make a run.
Yeah, absolutely. Dad, before we move on to the John Deere Classic, which talk a little golf here, which I'm glad to have, of course, Jay, Nate, and then Mitch, who's also a big golf fan as well. So we got a lot to talk about. Before we do that, though, tell us a little bit about Healthy Cell. We did REM sleep earlier. I know that's the product you love to talk about, but you also, you do joint health and mobility. I don't know if you do the brain one, which
yes, I do. I do the focus.
Try, so, yeah, that's right, the focus. So tell us a little bit about Healthy Cell and some of their great products and how they can take advantage of that 20% promo code there at Godzilla, 20% off.
I'm just a big believer in getting the right nutrition in your body, especially as you get a little bit long in the tooth like me. By the way, I have lost 15 pounds, if anybody hasn't noticed. So hopefully that'll keep going, Mitch. But listen, I love Healthy Cell because I travel a lot. I don't eat right. You're out a lot. You're on the bus. I'm in Milwaukee for 2 weeks, different hotels. I mean, you just don't eat the right foods. I certainly do when I'm home. So that's why I'm such a believer in Healthy Cell, especially the REM sleep we talked about. But I take I take the joint of mobility every day, and I felt better. I mean, I had all kinds of back issues, arm issues. Uh, about a month ago, I had to go to the doctor because I couldn't type with my hand. Carpal tunnel. They had to put that big black brace on. So then I started, and I was off the joint and thing because I ran out of it, forgot to order it, whatever dumb thing I did. Finally, I got it, and that was better. But I also take the focus because you get older, you want to stay sharp. All of these nutrients go into your body, and it's not like you go to GNC and you buy those pills and 90% of that you just urinate out. I'm just worthless, right? Every doctor will tell you that. But the thing about Healthy Cell and the gel, you down those, it goes right into your system. And so just go to healthycell.com, promo code Godzilla, you're going to get 20% off. Now I've got mom taking the bios every day, which is all the vitamins you need. I got her taking that because I want her to stay healthy. Now it's like kicking and screaming. I got to make sure every day, did you take your bio today? I forgot. No, we got to take it. I got to leave it for when I go. But we got to make sure you get the right nutrients in. And that's how you stay healthy. It's how you stay vibrant. And Dr. G and Poppin, Healthy Cell, I love this company because they've got it figured out. And since I've been a believer in them, and I don't promote anything that I don't do. Since I've been a believer in them, I have definitely felt better. And now I'm trying to lose some weight so that, I can have a little more mobility, as they say. So just go to healthycell.com/Godzilla, healthycell.com/Godzilla, promo code Godzilla. You're going to get 20% off. Let me also promote the debut today on the John Fredericks Media Network, the debut of the Jay Delsing Golf Show. Following Godzilla Wins at 11 a.m. across our network, all of our apps, Get Her Live, Whole Bit, the Jay Delsing Golf Show. Jay, excited about your show. Starts today at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 Central, right after Godzilla Wins. Except in Pittsburgh, because of Pittsburgh, Saturday is Polka John Day. Other than that, all the other markets, Polka John Day in Pittsburgh. Sorry, guys. Polka John rules.
So you're telling me Lee
that time
Trevino
slot.
gets preempted by Polka John? Okay.
You're
right.
in Pittsburgh,
Yeah,
you're preempted, baby, by Polka John. When we bought Pittsburgh, Ann met with Polka John, and Ann said to me, as long as we own Pittsburgh, Polka John is going to run the Polka John show. He's done it since like 1947. So other than that, Jay Delsing live across the John Fredericks Media Network, Nashville, Memphis, a whole bit. 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 Central, right after Godzilla Wins. Jay Delsing on golf. Can't wait.
And if you get bored, if you're in Pittsburgh and you get, you want to listen to both Polka John and Jay at the same time, you can go to the John Fredericks app. Just download the app and you'll be able to hear.
Yeah, fantastic. You can take John with you everywhere.
Yeah,
Hey Jay, is Lee Trevino going to be in the new Happy Gilmore? I hope so.
Well, that's interesting because we asked him about the Happy Gilmore, and he gave me an answer that I couldn't believe because I've been in the locker room with Lee. One of the first things before I ever met him, I walked by him. He said, "Hey kid, you got a cigarette?" Now this is 1985. We're smoking inside. Arnold Palmer, Tom Watson, all those guys smoking inside, but they don't want the people outside to know that they got a dart going. I'm like, "No, I don't smoke." And he goes, "Why not?" I'm like, It's terrible. Like, I don't know. I'm just not a smoker. I'm like, I don't know. I don't have any cigarettes, Mr. Trevino. And he said he didn't like the Happy Gilmore idea because the bad language.
Okay, yeah.
Which I don't know.
Yeah, smoking inside, but
I'm just gonna leave that.
yeah, smoking inside, but can't be associated with bad language. And nothing wrong with smoking a cigarette if you're a golfer. Charlie Hull does it all the time. Everybody loves her now. But yeah, it is terrible for you. So definitely don't want to promote cigarettes there on any channel there. Let's move to golf, Jay, a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about the John Deere Classic. Talk about a tough time for sports. Even golf is like right now because we got a couple like non-elevated events. Like even golf, I don't have like a whole lot of people that have a ton of name recognition that we can talk about. But, we love the John Deere. It's one of the most fun courses. I'm going to toss it over to Nate for a couple of reasons. Nate, I want you to tell us a little bit about the John Deere, the course, and what it takes to be successful here. And then also talk about Chan Kim, your favorite golfer, who is lurking at the John Deere.
Yeah, so the John Deere Classic is pretty much always in my memory sort of been in this like kind of funky sandwich spot. A lot of times it was like the week before the Open Championship. Now we're a couple weeks before the Open Championship. And it's suffering because it's a sandwich between two majors and some designated events and stuff like that. So it looks a lot more like a Corn Ferry Tour event than a traditional sort of PGA Tour event. You're getting a lot of guys that are sort of on the fringes of being able to keep their card, and the scoreboard sort of reflects that. Guys that really need to be playing to earn FedEx Cup points to be eligible for next season, whereas a lot of the guys that's not a concern for, namely the top 30 to 40 players in the world, they're not playing this week. They're taking it off. They're getting ready to travel, go across the pond, probably play the Scottish Open, probably play the Open Championship. So that's sort of why this is a little bit of a dead spot. But the course itself is fun. I mean, if you're a golf guy, like TPC Deer Run is like pretty fun. Like of the easy courses, like it's a pretty exciting course. I mean, guys routinely pretty much get to 20 plus under par. Tons of birdies. It's a course that's accommodating to bombers and sort of players that don't hit it as far. The leaderboard sort of reflects that. I mean, CT Pan and Aaron Ryer by in no universe bombers on the PGA Tour, but Harry Hall is in third place, and he is probably a bomber by most standards. So you get kind of a good mix of players. It's you don't often get on the PGA Tour just a totally wide open event where both styles can succeed. Usually it's kind of one or the other, and you're just scratching off half the field. But because this field is pretty weak, and because this course is pretty accessible for both, it's fairly short, fairly wide open, so it's really just turns into kind of a putting contest. It can make for an exciting event, and we can see that now. I mean, the leaderboard's pretty bunched. I think anyone from 10 to 14 under par is probably still in this, and that's about 20 players. So it should be an exciting weekend at least.
Jay, have you played TPC Deer Run?
I did. I played this tournament 26 years in a row, you guys, and I'm a Midwestern guy. It's a great community event. It's in Quad Cities, which is, John, you've traveled, guys, you've probably traveled a lot. It is in the middle of nowhere. It's two cities in Illinois you've never heard of, Rock Island and Moline, Illinois, and two cities in Iowa, Davenport and Bettendorf, and they sit right on this river. And I got to tell you, it's a cool tournament because the entire community comes out. They get more people to show up there. And it's, as a player, it's certainly a blast to get to play in front of people. They got pork chop sandwiches. My dad, I think, had 5 pork chop sandwiches in one round. I'm like, that's probably a record, Dad. We don't want to tell anybody about it, because they lather it up. It's white bread, butter, and a pork chop. So don't tell Healthy Cell, but it's really, it's really, really good. But guys, the tournament is John Deere is the second longest sponsor on the PGA Tour, and they have raised over $175 million for local charities. So that type of money goes a long way in those small little communities, and it's a lot of fun. I think Nate hit everything on the head. I mean, you don't have a lot of name recognition there, but there are good players there. 2 players to look for that I love on the weekend, Sungjae Im and Denny McCarthy, both great players. Im is a birdie machine. If he gets going, look out. But what's cool about this, what's exciting, is that you saw the 59 in the first round. That's out there. So you can sit there, starting off 4 or 5 shots back and really make a run. And it's a lot of fun. Jordan Spieth won his first tournament there. I don't know if you recall that, but he's in the field, and it's a lot of fun. It's hotter than hell. It's Africa hot there. So all the greens are watered. So you're going to see the ball hit and just stop. And when you get that on the PGA Tour, forget it. These guys are so good. It's just like shooting darts.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. One of the interesting.
Ironically, you mentioned the four quad cities, and the course is actually in Silvis, which is technically a suburb of East Moline, the wannabe city of the quad cities.
There you go. Mitch, go ahead.
Maybe
I
next year
used
they'll
to
be
I
up
used
there.
to cover this event.
That's great.
Well,
Yeah.
let me ask you: Is
course,
there
yeah.
anything that Dan Angel didn't cover?
He's
I mean,
awesome.
No.
That's
single A
impressive,
baseball
man.
and God knows where, some
That's
golf
why he's the
tournament that
best.
nobody heard of,
Well-
in a city that's trying to be a wannabe Quetzal. What the hell haven't you covered, Angel?
Well,
How
what
old
about
are you?
what
This
about
guy's
this
covered
topic?
everything.
What about this topic? Jay's played 26 years in a row. Nate shoots 69s and 64s as well, and then Dan's been everywhere, covered the event.
Yeah.
I don't know what I can
This
add.
is
The only thing I want to add is, why is Live Golf focusing on the John? They basically, when DJ came over, he was like, "Oh, I don't have to play in the John Deere anymore." He made fun of it. Greg Norman's come out, like, they're using this as their calling card against the PGA Tour, and this is like that sandwich throwaway tournament, not throwaway tournament, but it is what it is. And the fact that Liv tries to say, "Hey, watch us this week because this is what the PGA is most weeks."
Yeah, good
is
luck
huge.
finding Liv, Mitch, on the CW, whichever that is. You know,
Yeah.
Liv was coming down to like the third hole, and all these guys are finishing. And the end of the tournament got preempted by a rerun of like Saved by the Bell. You know,
Tom and
Like,
Jerry.
what happened? Like, we don't know.
Yeah, I mean-
When I was watching it earlier in the season, they just lost the feed during the
Yeah,
playoff.
the feed just
Fantastic.
went off.
Yeah,
I was watching.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, oh,
that'll happen.
Somebody turn
that will-
turn the switch off.
That will happen on Live. You'll be like, you'll be watching it. You'll fall asleep and you'll wake up and it'll be like, everybody loves Raymond. I'm like, what happened to the golf tournament? It's like, oh, they're still playing golf. The CW just bumped them for Everybody Loves
Yeah.
Raymond or King of
You
Queens.
mean you
or
don't
whatever.
want to watch it on tape delay?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, it doesn't matter because it's shotgun. So it doesn't like, I just watch highlights of the winner walking into the clubhouse at 2 p.m. It's like ridiculous. But
And that's like the
And
arrogance of Live, right? Like, not every week is a banger for Live either. Like, get out of here.
Yeah.
they don't even play every week.
Nobody can name the last 30 players in the field at Liv. They only have 54 players, and nobody knows the last 30. Give me a break.
Yeah.
I mean,
Jay, bringing it back to this, does Zach Johnson have a chance on this? I mean, he's sitting in the top 20, and obviously he's the sentimental favorite because he's the Iowa guy from Cedar Rapids. Like when we covered this event, we always had one reporter focused entirely on Zach Johnson because he drew the biggest crowds of the week. So does he have a chance to pull this off?
it's an outside chance, but you know the term horses for courses, Dan. This guy has made more money on this golf course than anybody, maybe except for Steve Stricker. And Steve Strick's moved on to the Champions event. So he does, just because of what Nate said. It's not overly long. Right? Yeah. And not very seldom do you get an event where you'll have a Zach Johnson competing with some of the bombers and the gougers. So he really does. Plus, when you putt like Zach does, even at his, 46 or 47 now, he still putts really well. So it turns into this putting contest. You got to hit it well, but man, you got to make some putts that you wouldn't typically make to compete.
Aaron Rye at the top of the leaderboard here with CT Pan. Rye can really play as well. He was in the mix last week. He does, I think, have trouble closing on Sundays, but I would expect him to move pretty well today. Sung Jae, I think, is another one that I know Jay mentioned that I believe can definitely win. We can run any tournament. Denny McCarthy as well. Thunder Bear, right? He's in the mix as well. And then really the only two big names, if you're not like a huge golf guy, is I guess Keith Mitchell kind of, but really it's like Jay mentioned, it's Jordan Spieth and Jason Day who are playing in this tournament and could move. I mean, this is a tournament I think that probably 25 under, 22 to 25 under is probably a winning score. That's out there. That these guys are going to shoot in the 60s, some of them today and
Jack
tomorrow.
Spieth is 3 under after 5, so he's gone from just barely making the cut to 25th. Guys, that's one of the crazy things about the tour. If the difference between making the cut and usually the top 10 is a halfway decent front 9, you shoot 3 or 4 under, all of a sudden you go from 55th to 20th. It's insane. I can remember one day that I shot at the John Deere. I think I shot 6 under par in the morning. And so I did all my stuff. I come back for my afternoon round, and the cut's going to be 6 under par. I was like, shit, I left the golf course, and I was in like 11th. And now I'm at 70th. Yeah. So I don't want to tell you if I made or missed a cut. Let's just say I did.
Hey, Jay, let me ask you something. I'm on DraftKings right now. I've never bet golf in my life, not a penny, right? So this is a John Deere Classic. Aaron Wright, what's his name?
Aaron
Aaron Wright plus 360. Sungli M plus 700. Davis Thompson plus 900. Denny McCarthy plus 1,000. CT Pan plus 1,000. Who should I bet?
Boy, I got to tell you, I'm tempted to put it on Rye. I'm tempted to put it. They closed last week at Detroit, and he was right there, John. Now I have to say the golf in the back nine was lousy between Akshay and Rye. They just didn't play well. But he's put himself in position, and it's so hard to get over the hump and get that first win. But what did you say his odds were?
Plus who? Which one?
Plus 360.
Rye is plus 360. Yeah.
Plus 360. Yeah, that's some pretty good. That's some pretty good. It's such a crapshoot, but I wouldn't mind putting a little money on him. I think Sanjay M is a possibility, but he doesn't have as much value, and neither does. Yeah, I would go, John. I would go someone try to get at least 1,000 because it is so wide open. This is the hardest event to try to call to see who's going to win.
So
I mean, like Davis Thompson at plus 900 seems reasonable to me. I mean,
is that what you like, Nate?
Right That's what
Davis
I like.
Thompson.
If I was looking at it, yeah.
All right, I'm gonna bet.
I think
Davis
y'all
Thompson.
I think y'all are crazy. I'd go with Thor Bjornsson at 35 to 1.
Or Chanimal.
Or the Chanimal, yeah. Chan Kim.
Chanimal's 50 to 1, dude.
Yeah, Chan Kim's 50 to 1. Chan's won on the Corn Ferry a couple times. He can close out a tournament, which is real. And
he only missed 4 out of the last.
Who'd you say, Jack? Chan Kim?
Chan Kim at 50 to 1, or Michael Thor Bjornsson, they call him Thunder Bear, 35 to 1. Who he's a DP World Tour guy, and Nate, correct me if I'm wrong.
No,
I believe
we're crossing streams here. Thorborn Olesen is who you're thinking about, DP World guy.
Oh, never mind that.
I mean, now you guys are giving me 5 different plays here. I just picked.
Well, that's golf.
That's how you bet golf. Yeah.
That's how you bet golf. Yeah, like yeah.
Who do you like, Nate?
If ever I bet golf, I bet like 6 guys at a time. What?
No, I can't bet 6 guys. I just want to bet one guy.
Bet David
Thompson. You'll lose.
Thompson.
Yeah, bet David Thompson at 9 to 1.
I got bet David
John,
Thompson.
that's more restrictive than my correct score soccer bets.
Plus 900. Yeah. And I'm going to bet that right now while I'm on the air.
Live.
Okay, great. Then hopefully he wins, because if he doesn't, Dad's going to complain about that for 3 months.
The first golf bet I've ever
One time
placed.
you asked me to get one golfer out of 70 to win this golf tournament, and it didn't work out.
I mean, look, Lucas Glover's lurking at 50 to 1 as well. Nothing wrong with Lucas Glover. So a lot of good golf left to be played at the John Deere Classic. So we shall see. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the Godzilla Wins Saturday Pick Show here in July, where the sports is still turning here. A lot of sports we can talk about. These run sheets always are fun in July and August before football gets started. Go to GodzillaWins.com for all of your sports analysis and predictions. Go to the daily picks and you'll see Dad's bets for the day. I'm sure he's got a bunch of MLB ones that he
daily picks, baby. Go to daily picks every day on GodzillaWins.com. Daily picks.
Thank you so much, Dan Angel, Mitch Rogers, and Nate Perry for joining us, as well as Jay Delsing, whose show will be coming up next, unless you're in Pittsburgh. Otherwise, you'll be listening to the Jay Delsing show coming up next. This is the new spot for Godzilla Wins Saturday show, 9 to 11 Eastern. No more 8 to 10, and no more waking up super early. We got the 9 to 11 Eastern spot coming up next. The Golf with Jay Delsing on the John Fredericks Radio Network. We will see everyone next week. Thanks for listening to the show. See you next week.
Yay.